In this video, I'm going to show you how I went from essentially zero knowledge on how to draw hands to actually being able to draw them sorta kinda good. I've been drawing hands non-stop for the past week. If I draw one more hand, I'm gonna lose it. I'm gonna start throwing hands is what I'm gonna do. But luckily for you, I'm still happy to sit here and talk about drawing hands. There are two simple steps that went into this process: researching the fundamentals and practicing the fundamentals. And I'm fairly confident if you take a look at the research and the practice that I put in this week, then you could draw hands as well. And even if you already know how to draw hands, whoop-de-doo, that's great for you. Hey, we're rhyming. I still think you can get something out of this as I talk about just the artistic process of learning as a whole. Now, before we start here, and before you really start anything, you should ask yourself why. Why did I spend this entire week drawing hands? I want to tell cool stories, make cool characters. And you can't have a cool character when everyone's distracted by the janky ass hand that I can't draw. It's just one extremely important part of the anatomy that everyone needs to learn. Now you know the why, let's get into the how. The first tutorial that I looked through was from Draw Like a Sir. This video I'd actually watched earlier in the summer, so that is literally, that one page is all of my knowledge prior to starting this journey. Now this tutorial broke down the anatomy of a hand really well. He talks about breaking the finger down into 3 equal parts, the different parts of the palm, and how to draw those tendons that come down the back of your hand. This was all really good information, and I was trying to copy down his examples, but honestly, I found it kind of hard to apply what I learned. So then I found this video by DD Mark. In this tutorial, he broke down the hand into simple 3D shapes and applied his French fry method, and then slowly added in the details after. I drew with him as he did his tutorial, and I was feeling great. This was super helpful, and I really thought I could do it on my own. Nope. I was still wrong. I was still very wrong. 3D shapes, shit's confusing. Was it sad that I couldn't wrap my head around just connecting 3D rectangles? Perhaps. Should I take the time to study 3D shapes? Perhaps. But I was determined to draw these goddamn hands, and that's what I was gonna do. And then it hit me. A moment of realization that honestly brought me so much closer to my goal. I simplified it even more. So I took a picture of my hand in the most default pose I could and broke it down into simple 2D shapes. It's kind of hard to see the initial guidelines on this first drawing here, so I'm gonna recreate my process. Step 1, draw a square. The top should be curved like the arc at the base of your fingers. For step 2, you're gonna wanna draw some rectangles that are the same proportions as your fingers. For step 3, divide each finger into equal thirds. Step 4, add notches at each division to signify the bumps at your knuckles. Step 5, fill in the rest of your guidelines and curve off your fingertips. And for step 6, you can just add in all the little details like your fingernails, knuckles, tendons, and forearm. I'm in no way, shape, or form qualified to be telling you this. I am very new to all of this drawing stuff, and you should go look at the tutorials that I'm going to link in the description of this video to learn how to draw hands. But I just wanted to show you my process and the simple version that I figured out that worked for me for this specific video. Once I successfully executed these steps for the front and the back of my hand, I felt ready to get into the... Now, I'm not gonna lie, these next few days consisted of a lot of repetition. All that I did for days straight was take pictures of my hands in different poses and draw them. That's all there was to it. I did this for 3 days straight, adding in more complex hand positions and taking more silly ass pictures of myself. While this method of learning to draw hands was certainly effective, it does get old after a few days. I was actually really happy with the progress that I'd been making, but I started catching myself spending too much time caught up in the little details. And I wanted to change things up anyways because I was getting a little tired of what I was doing. So for night 5, I made myself a little challenge. Using only pen, I would look up references of hands, and I only get 1 minute to complete each one. I did this to test my knowledge on anatomy and proportions in a time crunch, when I didn't have the time to make little adjustments like I'd been doing the past few days. And the first thing that I learned in this challenge was that 1 minute is way too short. How do you draw a hand in 1 minute? There I was just finishing the first finger, and I look up and it's like 1 minute 30 seconds. I can't do this in 1 minute, so I decided to make it 4 minutes. So 4 minutes per hand, using only pen. My goal was to fill up most of this page, and that's what I did, with only just a tiny bit amount of cheating that was promptly captured on film. This was honestly an awesome activity and a great way to spice things up when you're drilling anatomy like I was. So I finished that challenge, and I was honestly pretty excited. For the first time ever, I saw my sketchbook somewhat resembling those really nice aesthetic sketchbooks. I know that's not the goal or standard that I should be striving for, and sketchbooks are supposed to be messy and have all these mistakes and not just this beautiful aesthetic work of art. All that being said, it was still kind of a cool feeling seeing my sketchbook look kind of nice. However, later that night I began to question myself. Why am I drawing these hands? What am I doing? What's the goal here? Where is this video going? Why am I drawing hands? I mentioned in the beginning of this video that it's just important to learn how to draw hands as part of the body and learning the anatomy. But what was really my goal here? What was the end goal of this week? Whenever I question pushing myself like this, it's always super helpful to think about my ultimate goal. This goal can literally be anything from I just want to get good at drawing, or I want to make my own piece of art. And for me, it's making my own animated television show. Thinking about this goal helps me think more clearly of what my next steps need to be. So considering this goal of mine, the next logical step and the thing to finish off this week of drawing hands was to animate a hand. I immediately thought of just a hand doing a nice snap. I don't know why I thought of this. This was the first thing that came to mind. The first thing I did was turn up the shutter speed on my camera. This would reduce the motion blur, and when I go to play it back, I can capture the frames and use them for reference without them being too blurry. So I stood in front of my camera, did a few snaps. Here I am trying to get the perfect snap. And next, I scrubbed through the video and captured the 10 frames that I wanted to use to make this animation. This was my final test. This was the culmination of all the hours I put in this week drawing hands. So I spent the last 2 days of this week drawing these frames. At this point, I felt pretty good about my methods and drawing the anatomy properly, but there were still a few problems along the way. One problem I had was the perspective of the pointer finger kind of curling around, pointing at the screen for a second. It's kind of hard to wrap my head around that, but I did my best to just stay true to the reference that I captured. The other kind of big problem that I had, as you can probably tell, was the shading. Throughout the week, I added some very minimal cross-hatching, but I tried to do a bit more for these final sketches. However, I do think that it stood out that I just do not know how to shade at all. This has been a huge annoyance for me, and it's always in the back of my head whenever I'm drawing. I just don't know how to shade properly. I've been trying to practice it, and you might be able to tell that I have some of the strategy down for it, but I am far from doing it well. At some point in the near future, I need to take some real time to learn how to shade properly, and I'll probably make a video out of it too. But nevertheless, I finished drawing these 10 frames, took pictures of them, edited them in Photoshop, and made the animation in Adobe Animate. And for the finishing touch, I recorded my own snap to add into the video. After 7 hard days of trying to understand the fundamentals and anatomy, drawing my hand over and over again, this was my final piece, what I had to show for all of my hard work. I mean, hey, it looks kind of cool, looks decent. Again, the shading is very off and is inconsistent, but I was really happy actually how the perspective of the pointer finger looks. Up until the last frame where it kind of just turns into a little shriveled up turd. I think the animation could have had a little bit more character and expressiveness to it. I think I also could have added a little bit of flair too. Maybe some cute little lines coming off the top of my hand when I snap. All its critique aside, I'm pretty happy with this. After a week straight of drawing hands, this was a solid piece of work to show for it. Let's break down one more time what I did this week to achieve this final product. Day 1, research, copying down tutorials, and working out the methods towards drawing a hand. Day 2 to 4. Using the reference I captured myself, I applied the knowledge and strategies from day 1 and drilled drawing hands until I felt confident executing said methods and strategies. Day 5, shake things up by adding some restrictions, using pen, which meant no erasing and no adjustments, and added a time limit. This is a good test of my skills and is a really good way to practice form and anatomy without stressing about the details. Day 6 and 7, I captured 10 frames out of a video I took of me snapping to use for reference. I drew said frames and converted them into an animation. I think this was a great way to learn how to draw hands, and maybe even a framework you can use to learn how to draw anything. Have I mastered drawing hands? No. What? No. What do you even talk? However, I think after this week, I did gain quite a lot of knowledge on how to draw hands properly, and I feel confident applying it to one of my characters. I just need to learn how to draw the rest of the body too. One body part at a time here, people. I hope this video was of help to you, whether it was to draw hands, get ideas on the process of how to draw other things in art, or purely just for entertainment. And if it did all three, that's great. Thank you so much for watching this video. Honestly, seeing all these comments come in is truly like the most amazing thing in the entire world. So keep talking about the art you're making. Give me suggestions because I'm probably being an idiot. But seriously, it's super exciting seeing all the feedback I've been getting. And thank you so much for watching. I imagine at some point in the future, I'm going to be doing the same exact video concept, but for feet. So that one's going to be wild.